witches!
Hi, hello.
It is still women. This is not a good start. It is still Women's History Month, and I can't speak today, apparently.
Girl, listen. I got called into work today at like 6:30 a.m. after going to bed after midnight, and I was all over the store, and I'm walking over to like pet care, and I was like, "Hi, do you have a good phone number with us?" And I'm sitting there
What?
like, "I'm sorry, how many crickets do you need?" And she was like, "Busy day?" And I was like, "Yeah,
Yeah, Yep, let's go with that.
busy day,
Um,
short-staffed, you name it."
yeah. It is the week leading up to spring break, and I'm a middle school teacher. I have never, no, just, mm-mm. I can't
I'm
even. If you've
done.
never worked in a middle school before, um, I can't even help you because they're obnoxious on a normal day, let alone leading up to spring break.
Honestly, though. But kudos to you for actually doing that.
I'm trying. I'm trying. I doubt my decisions
Doesn't
every day. I doubt my life choices all the time. But it is what it is. So, but that is not what we're here to talk about. um, this week we said we were going to do a little bit of um, Women's History Month stuff. So I'm going to start us off today talking about Marie Laveau. Well, let's be clear. I'm going to start with a little bit of history, and then a little bit about voodoo, and then I'm going to talk about Marie Laveau and her life. Because one thing that I'll talk about is that um, so much of voodoo and like African history and Black history is lost because of the transatlantic slave trade, and so many of their traditions were handed down orally, much like the Native Americans. So there's not as much known about her. A lot of it is like conjecture or theories, but I'm gonna tell you about it anyway. But first, we're gonna start in the 1700s. Um, the Europeans needed cheap labor. We hopefully all know this. Which began the that's hard to say, transatlantic slave
transatlantic,
trade. um,
the slave trade of the Americas.
yeah, across the ocean, across the Atlantic Ocean. Anyway, the Europeans made contact with African kingdoms and Arabic merchants who were already trafficking humans and began to import slaves into the colonies or the Americas. Actually, most of the slaves first went to Cuba and like the other Caribbean islands, um, which is where Marie's great grandma, I believe, started out in Haiti. But I will come back to that. Most of the slaves were brought from West Africa, which were mainly of Yoruba, Dahomean, and Congo descent. I looked up these pronunciations because I feel like I'm always like, Erder, I don't know how to say it. So I looked them up. That is how you say
Dar
it.
sound like American.
Oh my gosh. Yoruba, Dahomean, and Congo. And Yoruba is a lot of where voodoo comes from. Um, and voodoo was not considered a religion. Um, it's more of it's like a spiritual practice, but it's not a religion. There's no deities. You don't worship anyone. It's not like that. Um, you do petition the gods, and in Yoruba tradition, you don't speak directly to the supreme being, who is, I looked this up too, Olodumare. Um, you don't speak directly to them or contact them directly. You petition or you talk to your ancestors who petition the supreme being or
Hmm.
on your behalf. Any of the like spirits, which is what they call the Laveau, which is like their spirit guides.
So is this strictly just like voodoo? Did it say anything like it's just strictly voodoo?
This
Voodoo or
this is the Yoruba tradition, so it's not voodoo yet. It's like West
oh, okay, okay.
African traditions. Um, but it's big on like honoring ancestors. The next part of my notes, I said, as the white man always does, Europeans, specifically Christopher Columbus, landed on Haiti and took over and attempted to force natives and trafficked slaves to convert to Roman Catholicism. And they even went so far as to outlaw rhythmic dancing and interracial partnerships, which fuck those guys. Um,
As
which is like
somebody who is in an interracial relationship,
fuck
she
those
speaks
guys.
from
I just like I just love when they come around and they're first of all, Christopher Columbus was a horrible human being. Like the fact that we have a Christopher Columbus Day that we still like have as a national holiday is fucking ridiculous. Hashtag United States sucks. Okay. Um
I could just
so
I just remember all the memes of that day.
oh my god. Ugh. Um so we're still in Haiti. Um oh, and also it's called Haiti. That's what the natives call it. Like that's what we still call it today. But the French, when they showed up, they decided they were going to call it Saint Domingue. It's Haiti. I'm going to henceforth call it Haiti because that's what it's called. But I feel like
It's
it's
really funny
important.
because I went to a Catholic school and we always called it Haiti.
Yeah.
And I just feel like, and maybe this is just my personal opinion, I just feel like Catholic schools really just kind of like screw your opinion on a lot of other things in life. So I'm honestly surprised they didn't use Saint Domingue rather than Haiti, but I've always
Yeah.
known it as Haiti. I've never heard of that.
Yeah. So that's what the French called it.
Fuck the
Um.
French.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I'm French too. Kidding.
I mean yeah but fuck the like the colonizers and like
Yeah,
the people that just came in and tried to like force their customs on everybody else. Fuck
America.
those people. Yeah. Side note, I literally was listening to a podcast earlier. I was listening to Morbid and there was a listener tale. I'm way behind, so don't at me if you listen to them. Um, but they were talking about how like their dad or somebody in the listener tale was talking about how their dad got injured in a different country and like it was only $5 like for the healthcare and then he came back as like a believer in universal healthcare and I'm just like, yeah, dumbasses. Like, do you realize the United States have brainwashed us, right? Like,
Yeah. When I went to Russia, my teacher who took us over there was like, listen, if you get sick, now is the time to get sick. I mean, you're not going to really be able to fully experience the cities that we're going to visit, but if you're going to get sick, you're going to spend a lot less money here than you will there. And I was
for
like,
real.
I don't plan on it, but thank you.
Anyway. um. So Saint Domingue or Haiti. We're in Haiti. The Saint Domingue revolt was a rebellion against the French regime and racist discrimination because that's what it was. So they revolted against them, and um, around that same time, New Orleans was founded. Uh, did you hear that? There's a cat.
I did.
Anyway. um, New Orleans was founded, and a lot of the slaves were relocated from Haiti to New Orleans. So from a French territory to another French territory.
When what do we have like a time of when this happened? Like what years?
We're in like the late or the mid to late 1700s.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say, when did Louisiana become an American territory? But I don't
I
fucking
don't
know.
know because our education system sucks. Anyway,
I learned
and
more from
I'm
the
no
Patriot.
teacher.
I learned more from the Patriot on like timelines of anything than I ever
Literally.
did in real life. All right, go ahead. Sorry. Just I like
1776,
timelines.
New York City.
Alexander Hamilton.
That's literally the only reason I know. Anyway,
I love
um,
it.
so there were two subcultures formed in the early days of New Orleans, which are the Creole, which are French and Spanish descent, mixed with West African roots, and Cajun, which were the European and Canadian descent, and these are the people that settled in the bayou, who you think of as like like you know the really racist depiction of the like firefly in Princess and the Frog, where he's
Yeah.
like super like
Jim Cummings, a white guy who did it.
yeah
I think he did it. Yeah.
right, but like the guys that are in the boat and they're like super hicked out, like that's the
The swamp
Cajuns.
people.
Yeah. Um. So yeah, the Creole are the people that end up starting.
I think I think I met a Creole lady today because it sounded similar to like people from that movie and like Jim Cummings who did the Firefly. Because
Well,
I
that's the
felt so bad.
Cajuns. The Firefly
Yeah,
would be the Cajuns.
yeah, I just kept staring at her. I was like, "What? Oh, yeah, that's great." I
Yeah.
was struggling and I apologize. It was a rough day, but I think I met somebody because she sounded just like them. It's really
It's
cool. I mean, honestly, if I had time to actually listen to it.
right. Small world. Um, and then like I'm gonna talk about voodoo, but like there's two different voodoos. There's voodoo from Haiti, which was spelled Vodou, and
Mm.
voodoo like New Orleans voodoo, which is Voodoo. They're different. The original like Haiti voodoo or Haitian voodoo is tied explicitly to African spirituality, and the New Orleans voodoo is kind of merged with the Catholic religion. Something I didn't know about Marie Laveau is actually she was a devout Catholic. I didn't know that until I started researching because she was made out to be like this snake charming, creepy voodoo lady, which is not actually who she was. I mean, she was, but
She was a
ugh,
devout Catholic, which no one
yeah.
ever talked about.
Okay, so that's the background, a little bit of background on New Orleans and like the area that she grew up in, and then a little bit of that background on voodoo itself. Um, the idea that voodoo is evil or demonic is a colonialist view. Um, because, like I said, a lot of practitioners of voodoo were also Catholic, so that was just white people whiting all over the place. Um, listen, I'm feeling some type of way today. Um,
What the fuck?
side note, I have this student in my classroom who is white, and this student has asked every single non-Caucasian member, adult or student of my class, if they're Irish. And I'm just like, sir, like, can I help you? Because what? It just seems very suspect to me that he's asked every single non-Caucasian person if they're Irish. But the Prime Minister of Ireland is actually Indian or something, so that could be why he's confused. I don't know.
Well, I guess you don't have to be I mean, you could be Irish, but be like a different culture.
Right, or like be a second generation. Anyway, I digress. Back to voodoo. New Orleans voodoo takes practices and traditions from many places, not just Haitian voodoo. It takes the West African traditions with the Haitian voodoo, Native American traditions, and it pulls some things from Catholicism. Although, as I was looking through it, I couldn't figure out what it took from the Catholic religion, but I also didn't do a super deep dive into voodoo because I'm supposed to be talking about Marie Laveau, and I will get there eventually, I promise. um, Voodoo is a belief that there's life in all things and that life has power. Um, and the voodoo that is seen in most mainstream media with puppets, curses, and other evil doing is a stereotype and it is an inaccurate representation of the practice. They do have puppets and they do spells, but it's not the way that it is in mainstream media. Like I said earlier, spirits are summoned and spoken to. Oh, never mind. In New Orleans voodoo, the deities and spirits are summoned and spoken to by diviners, which can be just mortals. Not just anybody is bestowed the power or the honor of speaking with them. So there are certain people like Marie Laveau and other priestesses or priests that are given the honor of speaking with the spirits or deities, and you have to go to them to get that. I'm going to go through just a couple, like the main spirits and deities of New Orleans voodoo. There are a lot more, but since this is not about voodoo, it's about Marie Laveau. I'm just going to go through like the main ones, but if you want a more expansive list, you can check out the book Marie Laveau, Life of a Voodoo Queen by Monique Joyner Seablack. She lists like, I mean, there's like 6 chapters about voodoo, what they call the Laveau, which are like their deities and spirits. So the first one is Papa Legba. He's a guardian of the crossroads, often depicted as an old man with crutches, a pipe, and a brimmed hat, and he speaks all languages and either grants or denies permission to speak with one's ancestors. So this is the first guy you've got to like go to talk to your ancestors. His wife or partner, excuse me, God, his wife or partner, which I saw different things in different places. Some places called it his consort. So like it just depends on how you see it. But her name is Mambo Ayazan. She's the queen of the marketplace. Don't look at me like that. Don't smile at me like that. These are hard to pronounce. She blesses
I was
business
thinking Mambo
owners.
number 5.
A little bit of vodka in my life. Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
that's such a good song.
It
All right,
really
sorry.
is. But we're talking about Papa Legba, not Lou Bega. So bring it back now, y'all.
That was so smooth.
It really was. I'm proud of myself for that one. Thanks. Anyway, Mambo Ayazan. She's the queen of the marketplace and blesses business owners. She helps the oppressed and curses those who lie or exploit the innocent. You would offer her white flowers or sweet liquors to gain her favor. Then there's the
White
Sabrina.
flowers?
White flowers
Huh.
or sweet liquors. She knows what she likes.
Honestly, though, good for her.
Then there's the supreme being, which in Haitian voodoo is the I don't remember how to say his name. Oludumare. But in New Orleans voodoo, he goes by many different names. Some practitioners believe it's God. There's like all different names. The supreme being doesn't involve themselves in human affairs. Actually, I couldn't even find a gender for New Orleans voodoo supreme being. Like everything was very gender neutral. So I don't even know if they have a gender. Um,
So
they're
forward
the
thinking. I love it.
overseer, right? The overseer of everything. And most people are not worthy to be in their presence and therefore would need diviners, priests, or ancestors to advocate on their behalf. So, like, you cannot contact them without someone else in between. Then the last little group is the death spirits. Um, Baron Samedi. Well, it's actually like, it's supposed to be French pronunciation, so it's like Baron Samedi. But,
Better all.
yeah. Wears a top hat and has a skeletal appearance. um,
Oh, is it? Is it? Okay, I'm bringing back Princess and the Frog, but
yeah,
when he wears like that skull mask
like Dr.
for, I
Facilier,
think,
yeah.
yeah, okay,
Um,
that's what I picture. So
yeah,
that's so
similar,
clever.
right?
Way to go, Disney.
He
You fuck up a lot, but damn.
Baron Samedi leaves the Gede, which are spirits that embody the powers of death and fertility. I actually found this. I couldn't find any information on them in the book. So I went on YouTube and found a video, High Priestess Kathy of Spirituality, Spirits, and Spells on YouTube. Had a video describing what the Gede are. They each have their own individual names. I did not go into all of that, but if you want to know more about them, look up that video. Um, Baron Samedi controls the barrier of the spirit realm with his wife, Maman Bridget, making sure that I'm sure it's Maman Brigitte, but I can't speak French, so just,
Bear
I
with her.
hate me too. um, they make sure that spirits are worthy to cross the other side. They also stop spirits from striking deals with the living or coming back as zombies, because apparently that's a thing. And where Baron Samedi is depicted as dark, Bridget is portrayed as fair skinned with red hair. Because of that, some people think that she is like descended from or is the same as the Celtic goddess Bridget. Um, it sounds right to me. So now, now I get to Marie Laveau. Now that you've got some background on voodoo and New Orleans, let's talk about Marie Laveau. So, because so much like her ancestors and like direct line were slaves, there's not a lot of definite information. So some documents state that she was born 1794 and others say 1801. Not really sure. Um, but sometime in that like 6 year, 7 year time frame, she was born. She had heritage from French, Native American, West Africa, and possibly more. Um, and she grew up in Crescent City, New Orleans.
Hmm.
She grew up during caste system, segregation, and slavery. Like, slavery was still going strong. Like, we weren't even a country yet when she was born, so slavery was still going real strong. And this was the South. So, um, her great grandmother was brought over from Africa as part of the slave trade. Due to poor record keeping and dehumanization, her name is lost to history. I could not find what her great grandmother's name was anywhere. But her great grandmother had a daughter, which was her grandmother, Catherine Henry, who was mixed race, um, Native American and African. So
That makes me
Hopefully
wonder if like that name is her true name or if she had to like white it up.
colonize. Yeah.
Yeah. Because
I
being a Native American and African heritage, they have their own distinct everything, and Catherine Henry is
Not it.
neither
I'm guessing that
neither of
that's
them.
her like slave name. I'm guessing that that was the name that was written down somewhere. Um,
It's probably the most humanizing thing that I mean, it's kind of dehumanizing that you like lose your name, your
your
identity
real name,
because
yeah,
you're a slave. But at least they didn't like try to like make fun of your name or whatever.
yeah, or just give them numbers or something, like.
Yeah,
Well, I think they did do that in some cases, but in this
probably
case,
if you had a lot.
yeah, her name was Catherine Henry. Um, Catherine had a daughter as well, and her daughter moved from owner to owner until they ended up in the possession of a free woman of color who allowed Catherine to work to buy her and her daughter's freedom. Now, when I first read that, I was like, you're a free woman of color and you're buying slaves and then forcing them to buy their freedom from you. And I was a little put off by that until I thought about it and was like, well, that's like, if they don't buy their freedom from her, then how is she going to buy more slaves to free? Plus, she was
Yeah.
a really humane owner. And actually, it's not as well known, but Marie Laveau also owned many, many slaves. So, lots of slavery.
I feel like that was very common. I mean, a lot of history portrays it as white people owning, like, I guess, slaves from other countries, which is it was very common. That was the way to do it. But also, it's kind of one of those things like if you didn't do it yourself, like, you would become that person.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like my great grandpa was a cop in the Chicago in the 1920s, and he had to be corrupt to make sure that he like got his what he needed when he needed it. And if he didn't, then he'd get screwed over, and then he had a family to feed. So
Right. So, and like, if you think about it in the way that I'm not in any way condoning slavery, but like if you think about it in the way that they're buying these people from people who probably treat them horrible
true.
and giving them a better life, like,
I'd rather be a slave of a nice owner than
yeah.
a mean one. Like I'd rather be a slave of the North than I do the South.
Yeah. Um. Anyway, Catherine. So she bought her and her daughter's freedom. Her daughter's name was Marguerite de Arcantel. It's French. I don't know.
That's very
Um.
pretty if it was pronounced correctly.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Um. And the surname was taken from one of their previous owners. I don't know. I could not find if that previous owner was her father. I am assuming so,
Oh, maybe.
but I'm not sure. Um, but in any event, she obviously grew up and she's free, and she married Charles Laveau. Um, not much is known about Charles. I don't know much about him. He
Was
was
he
a
a
free
mixed race
man,
as well?
yes, and he was a free man. But other than that, I don't know much about him. And there's not much about their lives together, but it can be assumed that it was not easy given the political climate of New Orleans at the time. Like, they probably didn't have it super easy. Um, then they had Marie, who actually grew up in Catherine Henry's home, um, with her parents. Like, they all lived with Catherine. Um, she had, I mean, obviously lived with her mother and her grandma, who were very involved in spiritual pursuits, which likely influenced her to explore and learn the arts of voodoo. And there was a rumor that she even apprenticed with the king of voodoo, Dr. John, but there was no, because voodoo is such a orally passed tradition, like there's not anything written down saying that she studied with him. Um, she was also a hairdresser, and she taught herself how to be a midwife. So, well, like didn't teach herself, but like she learned,
Was a
like she
midwife.
sought that knowledge out. Um, and then, like I said earlier, another misconception about Marie Laveau is that she was only a woman of the occult. She was a devout Catholic, and she went to mass every Sunday. Um, there are no official surviving images of Marie, like paintings or anything. Anything that's out there is a recreation. Um, but she was said to be strikingly beautiful with dark, sultry eyes and brimming with confidence, which is probably how she got so many like affluent followers. She married her first husband, Jacques Santiago Paris, in 1819, and he was a local carpenter. He very quickly disappeared after they got married. Some people say that they had 2 kids together, but the timeline there does not add up. Like they didn't have time to have 2 kids, so eh. Um, but the current historical theory is that he left Marie and moved to Baton Rouge, which is about 80 miles up the river from New Orleans. Um, but she just presumed that he died. She just assumed he was dead. When so did like everyone in New Orleans.
I'm
Um,
honestly surprised it didn't come around that she killed him.
well, there were some rumors about that, but at this point,
Oh.
she wasn't like the voodoo queen yet. So, yeah.
And this is how she got her name.
Right. After he died or whatever, or died with quotes because we don't know, she began to refer to herself as Widow Paris, and that contributed to some wild rumors about his death. And people were like we never found a body, so like you just know he's dead. Like,
It's Carol Baskin.
I legit dressed up as Carol Baskin for Famous People Day the other day. Not even gonna lie. None of the kids
You
knew
got the
who I
hair
was,
for
but
it.
the adults did.
You got the hair for it.
Yeah. And I wore a cheetah print shirt and had flowers in my hair. It was great. Anyway, um, after he died, like this is a few years after, Marie became a hairdresser, like officially to support herself, and she met an affluent white man named Jean-Louis Christophe Duminy de Glapion.
Huh?
Jean-Louis Christophe Duminy de Glapion. I'm sure that I butchered that pronunciation because I didn't really care about Jean Louis. The two were unable to be married due to segregation laws because, he's white and she is not. And people sucked at this time. So they were
People
rumored to
still
have.
suck.
Yeah, people always suck. Like, people are the worst.
It does. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Go ahead.
But they were rumored to have had 15 children together, but only 7 of those children were on official record, and unfortunately, only 2 survived to adulthood. The others all succumbed to yellow fever. Um, I already said she was a midwife. She was also an herbalist. And then she started to get more involved with the elite of society, and she began to get more famous as a priestess, and she was requested specifically by different affluent members of society. Um, her specialty was healing and herbal remedies with the occasional love potion thrown in. So like everybody makes her out to be like this evil, like death goddess, and she's literally just out here handing out medicine. Like, people suck. She also owned her own slaves. It was speculated that this was so they could buy her freedom from her, as her grandmother did from her previous owner. It was not confirmed, but given the time and Marie's like personality. Um, that is the most likely thing. She also, again, I keep saying there were rumors because none of her life is like written down. Like there are no firsthand accounts. She didn't keep a journal. She didn't write things down. Um, but there were rumors that she helped inmates on death row commit suicide instead of being hung. So she was trying to give them a more humane death um, by giving them poisons or however she was doing it. Um, she had a snake named Zombie, and if you look up like paintings or pictures of Marie Laveau, you will see her depicted almost always with a big like python around her neck. Um, and his name is Zombie, and she would use him in rhythmic dances and other rites. Um, but her main focus was always to help others and to improve life for all. That was like a running theme through the all of the things I read about her. Um, she often made grease, which is an amulet, a voodoo amulet for her um, customers, and they're usually for warding off evil or other protective enchantments, but they can also be used as birth control. She did do voodoo dolls, but they were not used. They could be used for curses or evil, like in most movies that you see voodoo in, but they were intended for respect and remembrance as part of an altar, and they're used as physical conduits to loved ones who have passed. So, not what you see in most, like in Princess and the Frog. I know we keep going back to that because we're Disney nerds, but how he's like got the pin and he's about to stab Big Daddy LaBeouf, and that's not actually how voodoo dolls work.
I kind of wonder if
Although
Mama Odie is Maria Laveau because she's got a big ass snake.
she does, I don't know.
And it was alluded that she's like been around a long time.
That's true.
But you never knew how long, just a long time.
That's very true.
They
I
did
don't
it again.
know. Well, and there are lots of rumors that like she never died, but like I'll get to that in just a minute. Um, and then the last thing that she would like sell to her people were like potions. Um, Usually they were remedies for the sick or love concoctions, but like I said, she made poisons for suicide prisoners on death row or allegedly. She combined voodoo beliefs with Catholic traditions. She used holy water, incense, statues of the saints, and Christian prayers, um, which helped make voodoo and hoodoo, which are the magical rituals associated with voodoo, more acceptable to the upper class New Orleans society. So that's how she was able to get so many like rich customers. And she acted as an oracle or a person who predicts the future and conducted private rituals behind her cottage on St. Anne Street in the French Quarter and performed exorcisms and offered sacrifices to spirits. So she was like all mixing the voodoo and Catholicism and like mashing it all together and doing all that. She died June 15th, 1881. So she actually lived, even if she wasn't born until 1801, she lived a really long life for the time. Like she lived to be 80 years old at least. That's old for the time period.
That's ancient.
Right, like she was
People were
old.
dying in their 40s of old age.
Right, like she lived a very long time. She died on St. Anne Street, which is where she lived, surrounded by close friends and family. She was buried near her last partner, Galpwin, the white guy. She was buried near him in St. Louis Cemetery, and she was survived by her two daughters, one of which continued her work. Um, and some people even confused her daughter, who was Marie. I'm not even going to try to pronounce her middle name, Galpwin, with Marie herself. So her daughter was with the white man, like, and people, um, even some people said that that was Marie. Like she never died. She just, I don't know, youthified herself and continued living. Um, there was no record of her other daughter's name. I'm sure there is somewhere. I didn't look super hard for it, because Marie was the one that continued her mom's practice and continued to do things. But I'm going to leave you with one last little thing. Goodness gracious, I've been talking for a long time. I just looked at the time. I'm going to leave you with one little ritual, um, which is to petition Marie Laveau. So, if you ever find yourself in the French Quarter of New Orleans, you can go to the St. Louis Cemetery and you can approach the tomb of Marie Laveau, but you can only do this with a tour guide because people were vandalizing her tomb to do this ritual, which I'll explain. Um, so you approach the tomb of Marie Laveau, making your intentions clear, provide an acknowledgement of her power and significance, giving her the respect she deserves. Now, people knock on the tomb's base 3 times. Um, at Previously, people were taking chalk or charcoal or paint or whatever they had and drawing 3 X's on the tomb. That is why it is now, you can only go to it with a tour guide because people were vandalizing it to do spells. But then you declare your wish and your or want from the Voodoo Queen, making your intent clear. Keep in mind she's about healing, protection, and compassion when you choose your witch. Go to the St. Louis Cathedral afterwards and light a candle to honor her. And if your wish is granted, it is important that you return to her tomb and provide an offering of thanks, such as flowers or food. Um, you can also visit the house where Marie II lived, and it is now a museum where you can buy like various occult things and like voodoo dolls and um, pictures of Marie and like different things like that. So it's be a pretty cool place to go. So anyway, that is the Voodoo Queen of New Orleans, Marie Laveau.
That was fun. I liked it.
Yay.
Okay. So, my character, or not character, I shouldn't say character, but my choice for Women's History Month is a Greek goddess. Most people will pronounce her name Hecate, or Hecate. But it's, or not Hecate, sorry, it's Hecate, I guess. Um, but supposedly, the correct pronunciation is Hecata or Hecate, um, depending on where you're at. So she is known as the goddess of witchcraft, magic, and ghosts. She lives in the underworld. Her parents are Perses and Asteria. So a little quick family history on this. So the Greek family genealogy is fucked
Loose.
up. It's all over the place. So it's really, really hard to find a clear one. And I don't even know if anything I found is accurate. So if you're a historian and I'm saying something correctly, apologies. If you're from Greece, apologies. We don't learn this. We do this on our own. And I'm trying here. Um, so basically, the world was built from chaos. Chaos was a primordial being who is essentially where it all began, like the Big Bang. Yeah. Um, he had, or they had, I don't really know anybody, but they had 7 things like beings or whatever. Tartarus or Tartarus, I think is how you pronounce it, Nyx, Erebus, Ananke, Kronos, Gaia. Yeah, I didn't go this far. And Eros. So we all know Gaia is Mother Earth. Kronos is time. So basically, Gaia had 2 kids, Pontus and Uranus. Pontus was essentially not the Greek god of sea, but he was the oceans, the water, the sea kind of thing. And Uranus, I
I
don't
thought that was
remember
a
what.
Roman one,
Technically, yes.
but also
Um,
Greek.
yeah, something like that. Uh, I think Uranus is sky. I think he's like the god of sky or something like that. Um, so Gaia created those two, and Uranus had a shit ton of kids. A shit ton of kids. Um, two of which are Cronus and Rhea or Rhea. So those two are maybe not famously known, but they are known as the parents of um where are they? Oh, they're not on here. Okay. They're like the parents of like Zeus, Hera, um
Like the
not
Olympians.
Aphrodite, but like those like known Greek gods like Hades, uh fuck, what's his name? Poseidon, that like level of gods, and then Zeus just went around with everybody else. So there's a lot of other people mixed in, and Hera's got other kids. Like everyone's got kids, everyone. So Kronos and Rhea had their own things, but their like siblings had kids, two kids named Leto and Asteria. Now Leto is the parent of or the mother of not Artemis. Is it Artemis? Artemis and
Apollo.
yes, thank you, Apollo. They're not on here, so I'm like trying to remember what I looked. So that's who she is, and the other parent or the other person is Asteria. So
I actually really like that name.
Asteria, yeah, it's pretty. Um, isn't Asteria the like wife? Oh, Astoria is Astoria, the wife of Draco Malfoy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, whatever. Not my story right now. Um, so and then on the other side of that, another sibling of the original like 15 had kids, and one of them was Percy's. And Percy's, they're like second cousins at this point because they're essentially like brothers and sisters who had kids. So they're like not second cousins, but they're like this weird relationship. So Asteria and Percy's had a kid, and it was Hecate. Yeah, Hecate. Um, so that's like her family tree kind of thing. Um, but she lives with Hades due to the fact that she is known as like the goddess of magic, witchcraft, the night, moon, ghost, and necromancy. Um, her symbols are two torches. She's also, I guess, she's often seen as like either a three-headed goddess or a one-headed, three-bodied goddess. Um, but that's essentially saying that she is like it's kind of like the pagan or the Wiccan, the mother, the maiden, not the mother, the maiden, the witch, and the crone kind of thing.
I
Um,
think it is the mother, isn't it?
I
The
think
mother, the maiden, the
so.
crone.
Yeah, I don't know. Um, but so she is essentially that's what she is. That's what she looks like, or what she's often depicted as. Um, so let's see, what is it? She's often associated actually with Demeter, who is the mother of Persephone, who is the wife of Hades, for anyone who doesn't know. And some cults of Hecate have kind of assimilated like to her It's kind of weird, but anyways, so her sacred animals. So she has sacred animals. There are black dogs specifically, and I think it's pronounced polecats, but it's essentially just ferrets, literally
Yeah.
just ferrets. So, and actually, what brought them up? So, the black she dog and the polecat. The dog was the Trojan queen who leapt into the sea after the fall of Troy. It was transformed by the goddess. Then the polecat was either the witch Gale, who turned as a punishment for her incontinence, or it's a midwife who was transformed by a different goddess who was enraged with her. But Hecate adopted her because she was sympathetic and she wanted to protect her, essentially. Um, so if you see a black dog or I
Ferret.
guess a polecat, a ferret. In America, it's a ferret. In other countries, there's like actual. I think there's actually like something
It's like a
living out
different
in the wild
animal,
for
but
that.
it's very similar to a ferret.
Yeah. Um and you've tried to like find her, work with her, or you've just done a lot of I guess research on her maybe. Some people believe that seeing those types of dogs or those types of like little animals um are basically her telling you that she is here. She knows what you're doing, whether it be good or bad. And a lot of people actually, not a lot of people, but a lot of, I guess, works, because I mean, we're talking like thousands of years ago. So, like, a lot of these aren't like super up to date, obviously. But some works believe that she is actually evil and while others are that she's good. And then there's the third set of works who believe that she was good for those who deserved it and evil for those who deserved it. So she was like a nice, like little balancing, like Libra, essentially.
I like that.
Um, right? I thought that was cool. Um, she actually also witnessed the abduction of Persephone by Hades, and she, with her two torches, I wouldn't say she like manned the hunt to throughout the underworld to find her, but she definitely like played a big role in helping finding her. Because there's actually like pottery, because the Greeks were very big on pottery. Like that's how that was their arts, that was their
Like
pictures.
record
Um,
keeping almost.
yeah, so there was actually a lot of things that you could find with like that depiction of Hecate finding Persephone and bringing her back to her mother Demeter, which is, I think, kind of similar to why a lot of people think they work so closely together. And even in Lower Olympus, which is a book you can buy, but I mean, I originally read it on like Webtoon, which is an
Webtoons.
app. I love that. Um, Hecate is not, I wouldn't say the protector of Persephone in there, but she's definitely like that friend that she needs. And I think it's kind of cool that it's, I mean, it's not obviously going to be all that accurate, but it's pretty close. I mean, different things. Um, she's
I love
also,
Lore Olympus as a book now. I have them.
yeah, it's the best. Let's see. Um, Hecate is often depicted in triple form as a goddess of crossroads. So if she's at the crossroads, she can see all around her. She could see all that's coming towards her. Um,
Her
her
and
name
Papa
actually
Legba out
means,
there.
yeah, her name means worker from afar. Um, and the masculine form of the name was a common epithet. Is that how you pronounce it? Epithet?
I think so.
Epithet of the god Apollon. Apollon, whatever. Let's see. She, let's see. She was also did a lot of work with the War of the Titans. So Hecate was honored by Zeus. He gave her gifts to have a share of the earth in the unfruitful sea. She received honor also in starry heaven and is honored exceedingly by the deathless gods. Um, she was given her due portion, as were essentially the children of Gaia and um, Oranos. Oh, okay. Uranus is the Roman version of it. Oranos or Oranos is the Greek version. There it is.
Okay.
Um, she Zeus did her no wrong, nor did he take anything away of all that was her portion offered to her by the former Titan gods. Um, she has a little bit of earth, heaven, and in the sea, so a little bit of each all belong to her. She is also an only child.
I feel like that's
And so
rare.
because yeah, and because she is an only child, she doesn't receive less honor, but much more, especially from Zeus. Um, so that's actually pretty cool. Um, and there's like a lot of cults about Hecate, where it's believed that she was a consort of Hermes.
I don't like that. I don't like
Yeah,
it.
because both gods were leaders of the ghosts of the dead and were associated with springtime return of Persephone, because Hermes was also there when they found her and brought her back. And so it's kind of like by winter kind
Right.
of thing. Um, so that's kind of cool. Um, she was also given her own um group of things. Like, I don't want to call them servants or anything like that, but like she was given her own um nymphs, essentially. Nymphs. And I think
I love the motion you did, and then it sounded like you said nips, and I was like, she
nymphs.
she was given nips.
I
Well, you
I
went
said
grabbed yourself and then said.
oh, I was creating like a circle, like a friendship circle is what I was trying to do. Um, whatever. Listen.
Nymphs. I like it.
Okay. Companions. There you go. That's a better term for it. Companions.
Okay.
She has also said, and this is a different person, so there's Hesiod's version of things and then like other people's version. So Hesiod says that Hecate supports or is a protective goddess of warriors, athletes, hunters, horsemen, herdsmen, shepherds, fishermen, and children. Her companions are supposedly the Furies, which are winged creatures who punished wrongdoings, and her children are female demons partial to seducing travelers.
Sirens.
Yes. Um, and there is actually a lot of rituals that were completed back in like ancient Greece. Like second century. What did CE? Common era. Like second century common era time. Like this was just one of them. Basically, and this is kind of fucked up. um, so there's a specific island in the Greek Isles where this mystery cult, which no place that I found any information actually has this information, like knows what this cult was called. Um, but they believed those suffering from mental illness could come to this like location, do this ritual, and then be cured of the mental illness. Which how most bad cult leaders they have mental illness, so maybe it's kind of similar. Um, so there were specific people who worshipped the goddess, and actually having, like, even further back in time, so like 6th century before Common Era, they actually had circular altars for sacrifices to be made in her honor. Um, it continued on throughout like the Hellenistic and
Mhm.
Roman periods. And they actually found votives, like archaeological finds have found votive offerings to the goddess. Um, but like some of the offerings that they said that, not saying you should do this now, but what was used, um, were it was the supper for Hecate. Um, small cakes of eggs, cheese, bread, and dog meat. They were all lit with miniature torches or alternatively a dish of red mullet, which was usually prohibited from offerings to the other gods. She was also offered the sacrifice of dogs, specifically puppies, and the dog connection maybe because of her symbolism. Um, and also that it was believed that if dogs um, would eat the dead if they were left unburied. And they also howl at the moon, which is like she's the goddess of death essentially, and the goddess of the moon. Um, but a lot of other people think that due to the Egyptian times and the Egyptian god Anubis, who is supposedly the head, like a black dog head, um, and that throughout the years it like kind of merged together. Um, but they also believe that the hellhound of Hades, Cerberus, may be an earlier form of Hecate because she has 3 heads, or she's depicted as 3 heads, and so does the hellhound. Um, in each month, offerings were made to the goddess during the new moon. Um, and she especially appealed by sorcerers for aid in their magic and spells. And apparently they have found examples of these, like of cursed tablets. So that's kind of fucking weird. Um, but in the Greek time, it was common practice to place images of her at city gates and doorways of private homes so that she could ward off evil spirits. So she was actually used as like a totem for like safekeeping or whatever. Um, let's see. Oh, and on city walls too. Not just like to enter a place, but like everywhere. She was everywhere. One of the most well-known sculpture, or at least the first example of the triple Hecate form, is it guarded the entrance to the Acropolis of Athens by the 5th century BCE. Sculptor Alcamenes, which actually is really funny because in the game Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I think you actually meet a sculptor with that name. Um,
They really research those games, so that's probably true.
I know, and I fucking love those games. I'm a history nerd though. I love history. Um,
It's really funny because I was not in school, but like now that I'm older and can like study it at my leisure, I am.
yeah. Um, and so there's also another altar of Zeus, which has a 3-headed Hecate attacking a snake-like giant, which is also helped by a dog. Some notes that have been found believe that the heads of Hecate could be a dog, a lion, and a horse, which apparently represents the constellations, which cover the entire calendar year. But it's usually just human heads that she is like 9 times out of 10 shown with. Um, and I mean, because she's the like goddess of witchcraft, a lot of people in the Wiccan cultures or even in other pagan witchcraft kind of, I guess, spirituality paths will actually try to work with her or try to call out to her to help them with protection. with increasing their spiritual prowess. Um, but yeah. Oh, fun fact: her Roman name is Trivia.
I kind of love that.
Yeah, and she also goes by Brimo, Brimo. That's other names that if like you're reading something. Um, One last little tidbit. Supposedly, God, I gotta stop saying that incorrectly and start saying it correctly, or Will is going to lose his mind. This is what happens when you talk like a Midwesterner. You say things
Ugh.
incorrectly because that's how you were fucking raised. Anyways, back to this. So, okay, some people believe that she is the like a virgin goddess, so she's like Artemis. She's often depicted of wearing a maiden's knee-length dress, which I guess meant that she was a virgin throughout her goddess life. Um, but it also is saying that she's identified with Crataeus, who ultimately led her to being the mother of a sea monster called Scylla. Now, she also was titled Scylla Geddes, which means leader of the dogs, um, so that they could link her with that person's name or her possible kid. Um, there's another saying that she is also identified with Kokian, Colcian, some
Greek is hard.
nymphs. Greek is hard. Nymphs, Perseus and Edea, the mother and wife of King Hades. So she might have had a kid with a nymph.
All right.
uh, so yeah, I'm glad I picked her because she had a lot more than Lilith. But I mean, Lilith is pretty badass if you like Judaism, like culture or history. So
Interesting.
yeah,
All
I was gonna pick Lilith, but might as well. We're quarter witches, so
right. I like it.
yay. Okay.
Oh, all
Anyways,
right.
that's Hecate.
That is Women's History Month. Yay!
So you could have a badass protector or a badass protector in their own
Yay!
different ways. All
All right.
right. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.